Alternate Universe Diego has now been formally revealed for All-Star Battle R. For those of you with the Season Pass, he'll be released on the 14th. Everyone else gets him on the 16th. But that's not why you're here, is it? You want me to talk about the other thing that was announced on that day. Just as we predicted, there will indeed be a second season of DLC for All-Star Battle R. The second season will contain 3 DLC characters, which is a little less than the previous one. However, if you add in all the characters that we've gotten thus far as DLC, it actually equals out to about the same that we got for the original All-Star Battle game. The first DLC is dropping in early autumn, which I assume is somewhere around September. The second one comes out in autumn, which is probably October, like mid to late October maybe. And the last one is coming in the winter, which could be anywhere from December to early January, maybe February. I don't think it would go that far, but you really never know with these things. This Season Pass also comes with a new costume for Giorno, representing what he looked like before he awakened his stand. But by far the most interesting piece of information is the fact that we know exactly which part each of these DLC fighters will be coming from. The first one comes from Part 5, the second one will be coming from Part 4, and the third one comes from Part 8, a part that is severely lacking in characters. This pretty much deconfirms the idea that I had prior that we would be getting back the last 2 characters from Eyes of Heaven. So yeah, we're not going to be getting Endul, and we're most likely not getting Joshu. I mean, I know there's a Part 8 character, but if Endul isn't coming in, I don't know why we would get Joshu as opposed to any other Part 8 character. So yeah, I'm not expecting Joshu whatsoever. So other than that, this greatly narrows down who exactly we're getting as DLC. So, without further ado, let's discuss that. Part 5 has been particularly lucky when it comes to getting characters for this game, with 3 in the base game and Risotto Nero as DLC. So you may think that the proverbial well has run dry for Part 5, but I'd say there's at least one more character who could easily make it in. This is a character that I've seen a lot of people very divided on. Some people think that his stand ability just wouldn't work in a fighting game, like it's a little too passive for what this type of game entails, but I completely disagree. I think this stand ability would make for an excellent moveset, provided they actually make the most of it. If you've seen my previous videos, you probably know which character I think is going to make it in as far as Part 5 characters go, so yeah. The Part 5 character that I think is going to get in is Carne. As I've said, Carne is a very unique type of character for a game like this. His stand only really activates when he's dead, and you immediately think, well, wait a sec, how could you make a character for a fighting game who only is able to fight you once he's dead? Well, I think I've come up with a moveset that would be really complementary to the character and would lend to some unique battles. The idea is that Carne only has 1 health, so that puts him at a perpetual disadvantage when it comes to a time over. If you end up dealing any form of damage to him, he immediately dies. But upon death, he activates his stand, Notorious B.I.G. And by that point, if time up happens, he immediately wins, because his stand ability is still active. Much like in the anime, Notorious B.I.G. would be completely invulnerable to attack, so your main objective when fighting against him is to stay as far away from him as possible. Once time up happens, you immediately win. Of course, while he's still alive, there are plenty of moves that he has at his disposal to try to get close to you and eventually kill himself. Most notably his level 3 super, which is a counter super, sort of similar to Diavolo's. So if you end up hitting him when he has that active, he immediately kills himself and activates his stand. As I've said before, this is a very weird stand ability, but as I've laid out, I think you can understand why I think this would work. It's a very unique kind of setup compared to other stand users, and it would lead to some very interesting battles. Like, normally you're focused on fighting your opponent, just like beating the crap out of them and getting large combos, but here, it's the exact opposite. You have to stay as far away while they try to get any form of damage on themselves. So next up, we have Part 4. Unlike Part 5, which seems to have sort of, again, run the proverbial well dry as far as cool characters to include, Part 4 has the exact opposite problem. It has plenty of characters, but none of their abilities really work well as far as a fighting game like this. Whether that be Tonio's unique ability to cook, or Aya being able to change your physical appearance, none of them would really work as far as beating people up in a fighting game. But there is one character who actually does have some experience in terms of a fight. The fight in question involved him and Josuke against another stand user, and he ended up even saving Josuke at one point when it was really, really pivotal. So, a lot of people really came to like him after that. They're a character who would work really well at long ranges, and their stand ability is pretty powerful when used correctly. Unlike with the previous character, this is one that a lot of people have as far as predictions for a Part 4 character go. So you've probably already heard his name out there, and yeah, I completely agree. I think the Part 4 character is going to be Joseph Joestar. Now, I know at this point you're probably thinking, what? Joseph Joestar? We already have like 2 Josephs on the roster. The one from Part 2 and the one from Part 3. Why would we need another one from Part 4? Well, why would we need up to like 4 Dios? Like, we got the Dio from Part 1, the Dio from Part 3, Diego, and then Diego with the World, who just released as a DLC fighter. So I don't think they're entirely above having more characters, like more other versions of characters. But I digress. Anyways, old Joseph Joestar here is going to be like a really different take compared to the other 2 versions of Joseph that we already have. He has a very low jump, and physically speaking, he is not at all at his peak. Like, he's an old man. You're basically playing as an old man. He's able to use Hermit Purple as a very long-range whip, but even then it doesn't deal that much damage and can't really set up for combos very well. He also doesn't have much health compared to other characters. I mean, again, you're beating up an old man. Like, you can't expect him to be that, full of vitality like he was in his youth or even during Stardust Crusaders. So you might be thinking, well, what the hell does he do? Well, that's where Shizuka comes in. So Shizuka is in his arms at all times, and whenever he gets hit, you build up a sort of crying meter or a dissatisfaction meter, whatever you want to call it. Basically, you build up a meter that when you expend it, you can turn invisible and move around without being detected. This allows you to more easily avoid enemy attacks and take your opponent by surprise. He would also have a special move where he takes out a Polaroid and takes a picture of him and Shizuka. Doing this will stun the opponent for a few seconds, allowing him to start up a combo, or at least attempt to start up a combo. Again, he doesn't really have much in the way of offensive capabilities or combo game. His special move involves him accidentally losing Shizuka, and so, as a result, he pulls out Hermit Purple and starts whipping around the area in an attempt to try to find her. Eventually, he ends up cutting his wrist and squirts blood everywhere, and he ends up finding her. Once he picks her back up, he cleans her off, and the attack ends. So yeah, I think there's quite a lot of potential here for a unique moveset, as you can see. A lot of people may not like the idea of having to fight as an old man, like a super, super old man who isn't very agile, doesn't deal a lot of damage, doesn't really combo very well. But I think that if people gave him a chance, they'd find him to be a really fun and engaging character. So that's who I think we're going to be getting as far as Part 4 characters goes. So we finally get to the Part 8 character. Now, Part 8, as I've mentioned before, and I'm sure you all know, Part 8 has a severe deficit of characters. I mean, all it has is Josuke, which is especially bad because Part 8, by the time that this game had come out, it's already been over for a long while. So people were expecting that we would get a Part 8 character in the base game, but that never ended up happening. People were hoping for the first season pass we'd get a Part 8 character. That didn't happen. So with the reveal of there being a Part 8 character coming for this season pass as the final character, and presumably the final character of all the DLC for All-Star Battle R, people have all sorts of wild predictions as to who this character may be. And I'm right there with them. I think there's a lot of potential for who this character may be, but ultimately there's only going to be one. And if I had to put my money on who exactly that would be, well, I think there's only one character that can be. I mean, he's a character who you don't really see much of in Part 8, if at all, until they absolutely need to show him. There's a lot of mystery surrounding him and what his motives are and, ultimately what he means for the rest of the story. But, even at the end, there's still not a solid conclusion as to who this character was. I mean, we know a bit more about him, but at the same time, there's still so much that could be explained and maybe, recontextualized maybe in Part 9 or something like that. Anyways, the character that I'm obviously speaking of is the man from Josuke's Memories, also known as the Flashback Man. This guy appears in Soft and Wet Part 4, and he's shown to be like a character that Josuke may have known in a past life, and that, maybe there's some sort of connection to him and Josuke and whoever he used to be, but it's never followed up on in any of the material afterwards. It's almost like they completely forgot about him, which is weird because you'd think that if you spend that much time focusing on a character like that, it would come back in some way, but he just never comes back in any way. As such, I have no idea how he would actually play if put in as a fighter. I mean, he may not even have a stand ability that's capable of fighting. Hell, he may not even have a stand ability whatsoever. But him being in the game would at least give us a clue as to who he is, what his stand ability is, if he has one, his relationship with Josuke, and anything that, basically anything, just any information that we have on this guy, because we know so little about him. It's notable that this DLC, this Part 8 character, is dropping sometime around the winter. Well, that is going to be a good deal of the way through Part 9. Like, we're going to be at least 10 or so chapters in. So by that point, perhaps they're trying to like line it up so by around chapter 10 or so, we'll get the Flashback Man introduced, and he'll maybe have some sort of purpose in the story beyond being just a random face that Josuke kind of remembers and is never brought up again. I mean, they did this kind of promotional stuff with Part 6, with the anime, and they released Weather Report and New Moon Pucci on the same day as the final part of the anime dropped. So it wouldn't really surprise me if they decided to do that same thing here. And with that, these are the characters that I feel have the best chance to make it in as DLC for All-Star Battle R's second season pass. I think a lot of people would be really happy with these characters. They might not be the kind of characters that some other people may be expecting, but they're the kind of characters that I think we all need. Really unique characters with unorthodox movesets that kind of takes people by surprise. They eventually become your new favorites. So yeah, this is who I think we're getting, and that's the end of the video. If you have anything to add to this or any ideas as to who you think is going to make it in, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Okay, bye.